Hello and welcome to Beyond the Headlines. I'm Jane Gogodas. Today we are forest bathing in the picturesque Botanic Gardens, enjoying the fresh air and therapeutic feeling nature can provide. We are going to appreciate nature and hear about an international scientific study that has established 127 species endemic to Malawi and northern Mozambique. Once again, a warm welcome to Beyond the Headlines. For a period spanning 20 years, local and international scientists who include botanists, entomologists, geologists, climatologists, and sociologists have been studying the ecology of over 30 hills and mountains in Malawi and northern Mozambique. The study looked at botanic, animal, and geological data as well as climate and rainfall patterns of what is known as the East African Mountain Archipelago Ecoregion. The study has since been published in the Nature Scientific publications. Botanist Dr Zachariah Magombo is one of the 26 authors. Frank Kapesa engaged him on the research, its relevance, and what it has established.
Why was it done? I think 20 years ago it started with let me take ourselves as a botanical institution. We have a task of understanding the botanical diversity in Malawi. We want to know what plants are found in Malawi, what are they used for, what is their conservation status. That information informs how we utilize the plant resources. It informs the policy. For example, if we are to set aside certain plant species as being rare or threatened, we need to have a basis for us. So these surveys, it's routine that we do. So what has happened is that here in Malawi, we are doing those studies, studying the plants that we find here. You go to Mozambique, you have botanists at the National Botanical Institution there for Mozambique, studying their plant diversity. Here in Malawi, also we have people studying animals, studying insects. The same is happening in Mozambique and all over Africa for that matter. But now, over time, after some years, there emerged a pattern. When you compare what our colleagues are finding in Mozambique, for example, in terms of the plant diversity, what our colleagues were finding in the animal diversity, in the insect diversity, over the years, we have come to see a pattern that there are so many things that are common we find on the mountains here in Malawi compared to the mountains in northern Mozambique. The pattern was so clear that now it drew attention to study even more. So more and more expeditions over the years were mounted to understand what is going on here. And by putting together all that data, whether it's data on plant diversity, data on rainfall patterns, data on other aspects of the climate, data on the soils, data on the geology, all that put together, a picture emerged. And that is, there is a unique area that the mountains in Malawi and the mountains in northern Mozambique, an ecological area that is functioning as a unit based on those similarities, such that they have so many aspects that are sharing across multiple taxa among these mountains, but things that are unique just to this region. That's where we are talking of over 120 endemic species. Endemic meaning these are things you don't find elsewhere in the world, but in this region. And this region, for the first time, and that's what this publication is about. We are describing it and recognizing it as Southeast Africa Mountane Archipelago.
Now, the research has established 127 endemic species, endemic to this particular region.
Yes.
If you share with me just give me examples of these endemic species and how they're important to this particular region.
Yes, I think the first example I'm going to give you, the obvious one, Mulanje cedar is endemic to Mulanje Mountain. Now, we all know the story of what has happened to the Mulanje cedar. By 2016, 2017, all mature trees were gone. It is now that we are having restoration efforts, and we know the value of the Mulanje cedar. Timber extraction of the Mulanje cedar has gone on for years, for many years, to the point that we cut down the last mature tree standing. The point is not that we should not use Mulanje cedar. The point is that we should use Mulanje cedar sustainably. And this Mulanje cedar tree, which is the national tree, is unique to us. And so it's not only in terms of the monetary value of the timber, no, but also tourism point of view. These unique natural resources, be it the plants, be it the animals, be it the birds, be it the reptiles, it should be those things that we should package in our tourism package. I think in Malawi, when you talk of tourism, the obvious thing people talk about is Lake Malawi, Mulanje Mountain, Nyika Plateau for the zebras and stuff.
But we have plenty.
We have plenty to package in there. We should be telling people, you come to Malawi, you will find the only chameleon that you will not find elsewhere in the world. You go to Cholo Mountain, you go to this place, you find this bird which you will not find anywhere else in the world but here in Malawi. So
things like those are things that we should be proud of as a nation.
Yes, they set us aside. They distinguish us completely different from any other country in the world. Those things are our national heritage. We should protect them. We should use them properly. Take, for example, it is painful to talk about the mbuna fish, endemic to Lake Malawi, which you don't find in any other water body in the world. But you find people are making money from tourism using the mbuna fish outside, not ourselves. Why can't we package that? And not only, so the point is, when we are packaging tourism, it should not just be about Mulanje Mountain, Lake Malawi, Nyika Plateau. When people come here in Zomba, for example, they will just talk of the Zomba Plateau, Queen's View. I want to go to Queen's View.
The William Falls.
The William Falls. But there is more.
There is plenty right here.
There is plenty, even right here in the Botanical Garden. So I think if we are looking at tourism as one thing that can help us generate revenue, forex, let's think comprehensively what should be in the tourist package. That's what we are saying. But this should be based on evidence. And here is the scientific evidence that we can use to say, hey, if you come in this region, you are going to see the following, which you will not find in the natural world anywhere else on earth. That is of value. So that is beside using them directly, whether it's for wood or for food or for beauty. There are certain plants. I can give you a good example. We have the cycad, the Mulanje cycad. Scientifically it's called the Encephalatus gratus. It is for an ornamental use. It is found only here in this archipelago we are talking about. So as we are using it, whether we are using it for ornamental purposes or what, we should make sure we don't deplete. It doesn't go extinct. It is very valuable. And let's remember that nature works as a unit. The birds, the animals, the insects, in some way or another depend on the plants. Again, the plants also depend on the animals. But that nature is also, we also depend on it. Look at the water which is coming through here. If you scrape off all the trees, all the vegetation from the catchment, we are not going to have water. So
it's going to dry up.
Yeah, and you cannot separate man from nature. No. Man needs nature. But man, for him to continue utilize nature, he needs to do so in a sustainable manner. That's what we're talking about.
The picture that you painted about Mulanje cedar is quite worrisome. And in this research, you're talking about 127 endemic species.
Yes.
Is what is happening to Mulanje cedar happening to all these other species as well?
Not all at the moment, but I can give you a general picture. Since this research started some 20 years ago, by this time, when we are having this paper published, some areas have lost 1/5 of their diversity.
That's quite a large
That's alarming
area.
in 2 decades. That's not good. And that's why we are saying, I think this is time we should look at this region to be of global importance as opposed to being of national importance. Because if we have so many unique plants, so many unique birds, so many unique insects, so many unique reptiles, so many unique amphibians, and for your information, I don't think we have exhausted understanding the diversity. We are still discovering new things. And it is important that before we lose some of them, we should get to know them and understand them. That's why understanding that this region works as a unit, it is of global importance, yet there is a lot of threat due to human activity, and of course climate change issues. We need to join hands and protect this resource.
In just 2 decades, we've lost 1/5 of our biodiversity. What will happen if this threat continues? What will be the chances of us having an endemic region?
The point is, the more we use unsustainably, the more we go down the graph that at some point they will go extinct. We will not have them anymore. And we are the ones to suffer. Because from time immemorial, we have always depended on nature for various uses, for our well-being. And losing everything, I think it's not something that we want to see. That's why we are saying, if we had a narrow view of understanding these mountains, which are forming this archipelago, as a national issue, they should be seen as global issues. We should join hands. And I think it provides a platform where now Malawi and Mozambique, we have a lot to work together on, much more than ever before. Now that we understand a lot that is common in our mountains, in Malawi and northern Mozambique. So I think it provides some impetus that the two countries can work together to increase our efforts in the conservation efforts, to increase our efforts to jointly work together in sustainable use and management of these resources. On top of that, us, the two countries, working with the rest of the globe to say, look, this is not a Mozambican issue. It is a global issue. Can we work together? I think that's what we should do. It would be a disaster to see everything which is unique in this region to be lost completely. I don't think anyone would want to see that.
Having published the report, I'm so sure it has made recommendations to Malawi and Mozambique. What should these two governments do to protect this unique ecoregion?
One way is that I think it has opened up our eyes that we need to increase the collaboration. Whether it's in terms of the research we do here in Malawi and Mozambique, we need to increase. But also, we can also share experiences in best management practices of these resources. Because some of these mountains and Mozambique, what has worked, what has not worked, we can share those best practices. But we can also share worst practices to say, if you do this, when it comes to sustainable utilization of resources or conservation, it doesn't work. So it's time that we increased our collaboration between the two countries, but also engage the communities a lot more. I think if we think such information is only for scientists, we are wrong. Because without engaging the local communities, our conservation efforts will be futile. They needed to understand. In the same way, people have now understood. I'll go back to the same example of the fishing seasons. In the same way, people have they have to understand the need for ecological balance. That yes, we are catching these birds, we are using these resources for our own livelihoods, but we are also at risk ourselves if we overexploit this. So it calls on us as a community, it calls on the governments to find ways that we can sustainably use those resources. Us as a nation, collaboratively as two countries, but even collaboration even at a global level, this region, the two countries with the rest of the world, to safeguard this resource. That's what we need to do.
Beyond the line, beyond the headlights, 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 beyond the headlights.
In case you're just joining us, this is Beyond the Headlines, and today we're here in this beautiful, scenic National Herbarium and Botanic Gardens in Zomba to talk to Botanist Dr Zachariah Magombo, one of the 26 authors of a scientific study of mountains in Malawi and Mozambique, which has established a total of 217 species endemic to the region, 127 plant species and 90 animal species, 45 vertebrates and 45 invertebrates. However, these species are facing human threat. A case in point is the excessive bird collection. These birds are killed then sold as snacks mostly along the M1 road by communities as a means of survival. Dr. Magombo, you told me earlier on that we shouldn't kill these birds to extinction because they are a tourist attraction and could bring money to Malawi.
Yes, of course. Two aspects. I think the first one is the issue arising where someone would say, we do these things not because we want to, but because we are poor. I think it's understandable. But the question is, does that justify destructive use? I don't think so. I think the point is not to undermine the dire need that people have for energy, for food, for clothing, for shelter. That's beside the point. The point is everyone has to understand that it is time we use these resources sustainably. That's all what we are saying. So jointly, them and us, that's why we are saying conservation efforts without engaging the local communities will be futile. So this is where now we need to come up with policies deliberately ensuring that people can use those resources, but without necessarily finishing everything. Because if we do, we are cutting our own livelihoods, our own existence. But I think that's the message. People need to understand that. It's not to undermine the great need for food, for livelihoods. No. But I think we are in this boat together. The question should be, what can we do to make sure that we continue using those natural resources without them going or becoming extinct? That's the point.
But help me to understand how bird watching can be a tourist activity.
Yes, you'll be surprised. You'll be surprised that some of the issues, if you ask tourists who come to Malawi from different countries, we've had people coming in this botanical garden, sit by the river, the Mulunguzi River, whose noise you can hear in the background, with cameras, looking at monkeys, looking at birds. Bird watching is a big thing, that it can help bring forex. Look, tourism is not just about Lake Malawi. No, I want to make this point real to emphasize. Tourism should be about the diversity of the things we pack in the tourist package. We should be able to say, for example, for argument's sake, if you come to Zomba, you check at Kuchawe Inn, for example, you are within 10, 15 minutes to the botanical garden where you can do bird watching, where you can see unique birds. You are within 30-minute drive to Lake Chirwa, which is just down that way. You are within 1 hour, 30 minutes to drive to Mulanje Mountain, where you can go up the mountain to see what's up there. So that's the package that someone from outside will be interested in, because there are so many things in that package, which includes bird watching. So let's not have the narrow view of just packaging one thing in our tourism. No, let's broaden the tourist package. Bird watching in there, going to the lakes. And in fact, when you are in Zomba, you are 1 hour or so, 2 hours to Mangoji, to Lake Malawi. That's how we should package. And even here, we should be saying you are within 10 minutes, 15 minutes to the botanical garden, where among other things, you will be able to see plants that are unique to this country, to this region. That's how we should see this. So birds are just one element that can enrich our base for forex generation.
I remember when I was a young boy,
Yeah.
we used to hunt down geckos.
Yeah.
We were stoning them to death.
Yeah.
To us, the geckos weren't important.
Yeah.
In actual sense, geckos maybe could be very important to scientists like you.
Yes. Yes, of course. Not only
But of what importance are they to a person, an ordinary person like me? Much as you're saying they're endemic, yes, they could be endemic. Of what value, literally, are they to a person like me? They're not edible, for instance.
Yeah, that's a good question. Geckos might be not seen to be important, but they are very important, not only from scientific point of view, but maybe you can ask yourself a question. What role does a gecko play in the ecosystem? Why is it here? Those are some of these things we need to understand. Because when we understand that web as to how nature works, that's what is going to help us to say gecko is very important. Why don't I give you a good example? Right here, you see where you are stepping your foot. These plants you see.
Yeah, these green ones.
Yes. These, we call them bryophytes. Now, study has shown, if you asked me, how important are these? Are they edible? I'll tell you, no, they are not edible. But does it mean they're not important? If you look at the color, they are green. They are functioning in carbon sequestration, one. Secondly, they are microorganisms, tiny organisms that help in soil formation, decomposition processes that are harbored in these plants. But most importantly, if we were to follow up this river, going up to the Zomba Mountain, the source of the river, you'll be shocked that there are lots of these plants. They give a sponge-like property to the catchment. And the research... Water retention. And the research has shown that if you scrape off these plants from the catchment, the capacity for that area to catch water and let it sink into the ground and release it later is reduced. Here we have people down the stream cultivating rice. We have people fishing in the lake. They just see water coming from. If you ask them, do you think these plants are important? They'll tell you, no, they're useless. But they can't see the connection that the rice they are growing, the fishing they are doing, is connected with the existence of these in helping the catchment to have that capacity to hold water. So in the same way, perhaps we need to understand more. What role has a gecko got in the ecosystem? Who knows? It's an area we need to do more research. Why does it exist? And I'm sure, for example, sometimes you have, maybe you have heard of keystone species, that you destroy these species, every other things negatively happen. So the gecko, for sure, I know it has a role to play in helping balance the ecological web. What does it feed on? Maybe insects. Maybe insects that could, if we have overpopulation of those insects, could affect us negatively. So there are some areas that we still need to understand more. And in fact, I mentioned that we are yet to discover more and more species in this region. For your information, based on our botanical records in the herbarium, we'll be publishing another new species, new to science, new to Malawi, new to the globe, and unique to Malawi. So it's exciting for scientists, but this information should be taken down to the communities to understand what role they can play, how they can use those resources sustainably, but also policymakers to have an understanding, to have a basis for them to say, this plant is protected, or this animal is protected. No one should kill this animal. We need the scientists, the local communities, the policymakers, and everyone to work together. That's what it is about.
So if we destroy the ecosystem, we may be just harming ourselves, because nature will eventually start now coming back to us, so to say.
Yes, in fact, nature will fight back with vengeance. It's you've heard of this expression, shooting yourself in the feet, which means you can't stand anymore. We depend on nature. So whether it's because we are poor or not, the fact is we have to use nature in a sustainable manner. That's the bottom line. And I think the discussion should now be, how best can we sustainably use that nature? I think that's the issue. It's not to undermine the needs for the citizenry. No. It should be understood that it is also a fact, if we lose out all this nature that we have, our very existence is threatened. That's the point. This information or this understanding should not be seen as a scientific issue anymore. It is an understanding, it is information that everyone has to understand and realize. We don't have much time to continue shooting ourselves in the feet. When nature fights back, it will fight back with vengeance.
Dr. Zachariah Magombo, Acting Director General of the National Herbarium and Botanical Gardens of Malawi. We welcome your comments on the research paper and any of the stories we carry in this program. You can reach us on MBC Facebook page. I'm Jane Gogodas. Thanks for watching and see you next week.